Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags, episode 17, making it all the way to March 2021 here on a Thursday morning. The Raiders last week were $9 million richer. This week, they're $14 million richer and about 380 pounds lighter. It's been reported that Trent Brown, after 2 years with the Raiders, is being traded back to the New England Patriots, where he won a Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. They restructured his contract 1 year up to $11 million, which is obviously $3 million less than what we were going to pay him this year. Patriots are sending over a 2022, not even this upcoming draft, 2022 fifth-round pick to the Raiders in exchange for Brown and a 2022 seventh-round pick. So we got something, but probably the closest thing to nothing for a guy that we had big expectations for. One of the highest paid right tackles in all of football. He was the highest paid player on the highest paid offensive line. Now with Gabe Jackson gone, when Incognito cut, hopefully coming back, the line looks nothing like it did before, and the Raiders' wallets are full.
Yeah, we talked about it, that it was I thought it was just an inevitability. It was going to happen, and that's why I heard the grumblings, and that's why I said I felt about him the way I felt about Mariota. Get what you can for him or cut him. And we got something for him, so good. We got something for him. That's better than getting nothing for him, which is what we were getting most of the time from him anyway, because he wasn't playing. So when he was on the field, for the most part, he was great, but he wasn't on the field very often. And in the NFL, the best ability is availability, and he just wasn't available. So we had too many holes other places. We can use that money to shore up other positions on the other side of the ball. His replacement didn't play too shabby and costs a whole lot less. So it's just a numbers game at this point. If the Patriots want to pay him what they're paying him, then good luck to them.
So obviously with Trent Brown, he only played 16 games in 2 whole seasons. So he's playing only half the games for being the highest paid right tackle in football. No bueno. But I think even with that, I don't know if he for sure would have been gone, but there was a lot of other rumblings about him that I think bothered a lot of coaches and players on the team. He came in almost 400 pounds, which is about 40 pounds overweight from where his optimal playing weight. Like I said, the injuries, big problem, but that happens with everybody. COVID, he got COVID, and also he didn't wear his tracking device, which was part of the reason why the Raiders got fined and lost a draft pick. And he just generally had this aura about him, like he didn't want to be there, like he didn't like it at in Oakland and then in Las Vegas, didn't like being a Raider, didn't like football. And I think that plus the unavailability pretty much spelled it out that he wasn't going to be a Raider this upcoming season.
Yeah, there's a lot of reports out there that he maybe wasn't the most dedicated person, and he played, like you said, around the 360 mark with the Patriots. Never got down even close to that with us. Mm-hmm. 380 was his listed weight. Who knows how much he weighed while he was playing? So, yeah, man, it's one of those things where it doesn't matter how good you are on tape if that tape isn't in a Raider uniform.
Yeah.
If you play great at another place and then you come to us and you're like, and you're showing a lot of, I guess one or the other. If you're aloof, but you're available and you're lights out, okay, fine, be aloof. Be that guy. Mm-hmm. But, or if maybe you're not the most talented player, but you show up, you're a good teammate, you're a hard worker, and you don't kill us on the field, okay, fine. But you can't be both. You can't be unavailable and aloof and maybe grumbling that you don't want to be here and you maybe don't follow the rules because you're just that guy and you're not in shape. Okay. Good luck to you. Hopefully, I don't wish anything bad on him, but I mean, he's gone now. He's someone else's problem.
Well, and when you're not available and you're not playing, it's like being in a relationship with a girl that like things are going rocky, so every little thing about them bothers you. You're like, oh, this bitch like cuts her sandwiches diagonally and not horizontally. Like, oh, I hate her. Oh gosh, she like she wants to go to San Diego. I want to go to LA or whatever it may be. Like if you're super in love with her and everything's going great, then all those little things are like cute and fun. You're like, oh, it's so funny how she does things differently. But when things are rocky, you don't like it. So that's the thing I think what happened with Trent Brown is because he wasn't playing, because he wasn't available, because he kind of rubbed guys the wrong way, things like being overweight, things like the COVID issue, the not wearing his tracker, like things like that are exemplified. Those things feel even worse than if it happened with Rodney Hudson and just be like, oh, he's in charge. He can just do whatever, he can do whatever he wants. He's got everything under control. He doesn't need to deal with the small stuff. He's worrying about the offensive line. If it was, Darren Waller, be like, oh yeah, the guy's a superstar. He's fine. He's got his own system. But when it's Trent Brown, who's getting paid according to Jon Gruden, like he was supposed to be LeBron James, and he's not showing up and just appearing aloof, it's just extra salt in the wound.
Yeah. I give it up. This is the type of player in the past the Raiders would have hung on to. Mm-hmm. That I mean, not to speak ill of the dead, but this is the kind of player that Al Davis would have hung on to out of spite.
Yeah,
and just
like, you'd have been stoked he was over 400 pounds.
Yeah,
yes, perfect. He's huge.
He's huge. I channeled a little bit of a Vince McMahon right there. What the hell?
Yeah, I was gonna say, who was that exactly?
He's huge.
And also, so 2 weeks ago, Trent Brown tweeted, it was a photo of his back in Raider uniform, and it said, the one on the back is the one that matters. Like, it's an individual sport. The last name is what matters, not the first name. And that's just opposite of what you want. Again, not a big deal. It's not a thing that translates into anything other than just exemplifying his mindset and how he's viewed by the team, his teammates and his fans and his coaches. And then, on top of not being available, just makes things even worse. And then on Tuesday, he posted on Instagram, money don't mean shit if you ain't happy, I swear to God. So he's very happy that he's going to the Pats. For whatever reason, it didn't work with the Raiders. It just didn't work in the silver and black. And, I kind of want to know where you think the blame lies with that. Is this all on Trent? Is it circumstance? Is it the Raiders? Is it Gruden? Is it his teammates? Where do you think the blame lies?
Trent Brown didn't have to deal with Paul Gunther on the defensive end. Yeah. He had a head coach and he was basically the coordinator that paid attention, that pumped them up. He had a good offensive line coach. He had a good group to play with. This is a Trent Brown issue.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he just didn't want to be here because he didn't want to be here. Okay, fine. Go somewhere else. Go be happy somewhere else. And that comment, it's about the name on the back. That's very similar to an ex Lakers center, Andrew Bynum.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a lot of reports, he didn't really love basketball. He was kind of aloof. He just played for the money. He didn't really care to work out that hard or, whatever. He was asked about being traded to Milwaukee. I think it was Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, there are banks in Wisconsin too.
Yeah.
So it's like, he doesn't care where he plays. He ended up going, I think, to the Sixers. He didn't play hardly at all because he was always hurt. He was always this and that. He just got out of shape. And this is the same thing as with Trent Brown. He doesn't care where he plays. I mean, again, if you're an NFL player, yeah, you shouldn't care. You should just be happy you're in the league and, want to play hard. But to say that it's all about, what's on the back, again, like you said, combine that with coming in overweight. Combine them with maybe not being the hardest prep.
That quote is the shithead reverse version of the line from Miracle. Remember when he's like, the name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the name on the back. And it's like, that's what gets you all jacked up. You're like, yeah, self-sacrifice, doing what's best for the team. And Trent Brown was just the opposite of that. And
you have to
not
wonder,
available, that's a problem.
You have to wonder how many times he could have actually played if he wanted to, as opposed to, I don't think I'm quite right yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Who knows, man? That's between him and the man upstairs. And if he can sleep at night, with the effort that he gave us, I'm not saying he was faking it or he could have played when he didn't. I'm not saying that at all. But if he could, whatever the answer is between him and whoever his higher power is.
Judging by how the rest of the Raider roster feels about it. Max Crosby tweeted on Tuesday, you can only fool so many people. That shit always comes back around. First off, what is it with football players being super cryptic with their tweets? And
You know
that's
what?
always a thing. It's always like, well, if I were to imagine somebody
It's a big
with
locker room, man.
circumstances.
It's a big locker room,
Well,
dude.
we know exactly who he's talking about and what he's talking
fine.
about. Why being cryptic?
Because they can. It's probably an insider thing. Listen, man, say what you want to say, but don't call anyone out. Don't call out any names, this and that. I get it. I'm cool with it. Follow your rules. Follow the locker room rules. That's cool. I'm down with it. But yeah, again, he's right. You can only fool so many people for so long, and that leads me to believe he probably could have played a lot more. You're talking about Max Crosby, who played with a torn labrum and a broken bone in his hand. Oh, he had to get the plate replaced in his hand.
Yeah.
This guy was out there playing. And you telling me that whatever Trent Brown had, he couldn't go out there and play? That's, I think, more telling than anything, than all the other stuff. You don't want to be here? Fine. At least play while you're here. It's no surprise to me that he went back to the Patriots, because the Patriots know what they're getting in him. Mm-hmm. Another team is like, dude, I don't want to freaking give you anything for this freaking guy, because look what he did the last couple of years. He just took a shit. He played half the time, and I'm getting all these bad reports about him. I don't want that in my locker room.
Yeah.
I mean, the past know what they're getting, so fine. Take them.
So definitely part of this, a good chunk of the blame goes to Trent Brown for winning over the locker room is part of it. Like, if you want to be a consistently well-paid player, and you want to be respected and cared about, if that's what's important to you at all, then you got to win over your teammates. And sometimes it's doing things that make you uncomfortable, and sometimes it's playing hurt, and sometimes it's, X, Y, and Z, especially when you're the second highest paid player on the team. Even more so, that has to be a big part of it. But I also think a big part of this too is, I always say, no player can ever escape their draft position. Like, if you're like Clay Farrell, he will always be considered underperformer because he was drafted 4th overall, right? Mm-hmm. And then like Max Crosby, because he was a 4th rounder, 5th rounder.
Yes,
he'll always be viewed as wow, this guy's just really over delivered, because you're always connected to where you're drafted. And the same thing is kind of true with free agency. You'll always be compared to what you're paid. So Jon Gruden had that line: we paid him to be the LeBron James of football, of right tackles. It's like, paying him more doesn't make him better. It's not like he's like a video game coin machine where the more money you put into him, the more coins you get out. The more millions you dump on him, the more plays you're going to get. He's going to play to what he's going to play no matter what he's getting paid. And so this idea that you're tied to the amount of money that you're given, therefore we expect that much out of you. I mean, I understand the business mindset of it, but this is more, I think, a matter of the Raiders overpaid him and expected him to reach it, as opposed to he was paid the correct amount and underdelivered.
I think more so he meant it the other way around. They paid him because that's how they viewed him. I paid him like the LeBron James of right tackles because I viewed him as the Lebron James of right tackles.
So that's a Gruden problem, because
that's a Gruden problem.
Wasn't the right. He had one really good season.
If that's who he thought he was paying for, and for whatever reason, Trent Brown did not play like that for us, and he goes back to the Patriots and plays like that for them. You combine that with all the other stuff, he didn't want to play. He just dogged it.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about he just dogged it. So fuck him. Good riddance.
So this is one of the last dominoes to fall from that infamous 2019 free agent class. Yep. You remember that class? We were all excited about it. We were pumped about that free agent class. Trent Brown, LaMarcus Joyner, Terrell Williams, Vontaze Burfict. Every single one of those completely fizzled out. Terrell Williams could never find the field. One injury over another. LaMarcus Joyner completely fell apart. Trent Brown getting traded and could only find the field half the time. Vontaze Burfict getting essentially ejected from the league in perpetuity for dirty play. That's not a free agent class to be proud of.
Yeah, man, it's got to get.
Not going to have a reunion. You know what I mean? Like a class reunion.
It's got to get better. We have to get better at doing this stuff. And the thing is, these are the type of things I don't have a problem, and I've never had a problem with telling anyone that I worked for how I felt. And if I feel like a decision is not correct, there's a way to do it respectfully, and to tell them, look, this is how I feel. This is what my issue with this decision is. This is what my concern is moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
If these are Gruden signings and he's just like striking out left and right, he needs to just step the fuck back and let whoever the GM is do his goddamn job.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like he's picking up all these guys. He's picking up, and it's like, what do you expect from a guy who's been hurt most of his career? Oh, he's hurt with us. Okay, great. What do you expect from a guy who's been suspended and fined more than anyone else in the NFL history? Oh, he gets suspended from us. It's like, come on, man. Like, what do you expect is going to happen when you bring these guys in that have this kind of history? They're not just going to fix overnight when they come to us. I mean, the Brown signing, I just feel like more and more, the more I'm hearing about him, the more I'm feeling like he just never wanted to be here and he just dogged it. But like the Terrell Williams, like, dude, he was hurt all the time with the Chargers. He comes to us and he plays well when he plays, but he's hurt. Okay, that's the guy you signed. Vontaze Burfict, if you didn't think he was going to have at least a few dirty hits here and there, or late hits, or gets us at least fined a few times.
I still think that was a reputation ejection that he got against the Colts. Like that was like not a dirty hit.
You have to see that.
He already had the scarlet letter on him.
Going in. You have to know that this is the guy. Unless he can play squeaky clean, that's who you're getting. So are you that surprised he gets suspended? I wasn't. I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did.
So after, the stink of that 2019 free agent class is finally off of us, the free agent class of 2021 is probably going to be pretty big. After releasing Terrell Williams, Richie Incognito, who I think will come back, Gabe Jackson, LaMarcus Joyner, trading Trent Brown, the Raiders have $31 million in cap space. $31 million.
And that's pre-Mariota.
And that's still, so that's the 8th most cap space in the league. And if we trade or cut Mariota, that would free up another $11.3 million,
which we will,
to just under, which we will, $42 million, 6th most in the NFL. So we have the 6th most extra money in the NFL, $42 million, right? This should be a good thing. Like there's not a single person cut, traded, or whatever that we've cut away that I'm like, oh, bad move, right? All those moves, it makes sense now. Obviously, we made the error couple seasons ago when we signed them, they didn't pan out. But now, all right, cut your losses, move on. This next free agent class is going to be so crucial because this is in a reduced cap year, 180 million because of COVID. The offense is firing. The offense is ready to go. New defensive coordinator with a bunch of young talent and high-priced free agents. If this money is used correctly, there is a lot of reason for a lot of optimism. But the Raiders haven't given us a lot of reasons to be optimistic with their free agent money because it rarely goes anywhere that works.
So a couple things here. Number one, if you're a defensive player, I want to play for Gus Bradley. If I'm a defensive player, I want to play for that guy.
Okay.
So that's one thing. You have just like you talked about the defensive coordinator job being like a prize job for coaches because you can just be mediocre and be a huge
you'll be a hero
improvement, right?
Yep.
Well, if you're replacing one of these guys that they cut and you're just doing okay, you're still going to be better than how bad they were.
If you're on the field, you're better than most of those guys that got picked up.
You can be part of that improvement. You can be seen as part of that improvement. So I can see, I mean, that's Richie Incognito. I talked about him when we had Carl Cochran on. I said he's the guy that I feel we can cut and bring back at about 3.5, which is what's going to happen. It's going to come back to about 3.5. So that's great. Justin Simmons got bitch tagged, so he's franchise tagged and he's staying. That sucks for us. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that with the safety. I would rather not rely on the draft to get a safety. There's a couple of guys, and we'll talk with our guest more about this. But dude, I would rather have a veteran safety back there to help Abram.
With how young our DBs are, I'm with you. Normally, it's just like, all right, let's just draft, build with the draft. but with our DBs that are all like second, third year players and not progressing the way we hoped, like let's get some veteran leadership back there.
Yeah, what I'm looking for is let's get those 2 or 3 splash signings on the defense, right? And just sprinkle the guys around him. What we have been doing is let's spread it out. Let's spread it out and get, 2 or 3 decent guys instead of getting that one really good guy. No, that's not what wins in this league. You need the players. You need the elite players to play and the people around them to just do their part. If you don't have those elite players, you're not winning. You're not winning in the NFL. So this whole let's spread it around and let's get a couple guys here and there. Like, no, I don't want 6s and 5s on my team. I want those 8s, 9s, 10s. I want those guys. So
and I want a Vegas 9. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want
like a Cleveland 9,
I don't want no Iowa 9.
Yeah.
Sorry. Give me a Vegas Miami 9.
Well, you mentioned our guest, Marcus Mosher is the managing editor of the Raiders Wire. So we haven't talked to him yet. Kind of excited to. Haven't ever had a chance to talk to him, so I can't wait to hear what he has to say about Trent Brown, free agency, Derrick Carr, and the whole lot. So here he is next, Marcus Mosher of the Raiders Wire. All right, joining us now, the managing editor of the Raiders Wire, Marcus Mosher. Marcus, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So you're from Biletnikoff territory. We're talking about before you came on.
Yeah, from Erie, Pennsylvania. Grew up not too far away from Fred Biletnikoff Field. So I've always had the silver and black in my blood a little bit.
Is there like a giant sign as you're like on the interstate heading in there, like home of Fred Biletnikoff?
There is, and it's his big mug right on it, with no hair on it. It's fantastic. Stick them on the gloves or on the hands. It's amazing.
Yeah, there aren't balding players in the NFL like they're used to, like 60s and 70s. Like obviously the guys shaved their head, but like a good like cul-de-sac, just like full like 7 head, 8 head, just a little like brown curls around the edges. You take the helmet off, you're like, Jesus, is that guy 60? Like
a Nitschke, like a Ray Nitschke.
Yeah,
we don't. Well, it's bad for the brand, I think, for these players now to have a balding head. So we don't see it. So I'm looking forward to the next wide receiver to bring it back, because that's when when it's back.
Well, I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you, they had some rental car miles on them back then. They had some rough miles on them.
It was a harder lifestyle back then.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. $30,000 a year, and you go back to being a plumber in the off season, and you had the hair for it. Oh, it's about time. All right. Well, obviously the big news in Raiderland this week was trading of Trent Brown. He's going back to the Pats. That frees about $14 million for the Raiders, which is what they wanted. They got a 5th round pick trading for a 7th. So it's basically like the least amount they could possibly get for Trent Brown, which I guess is still better than nothing. What do you make of the trade and the whole, I guess, Trent Brown 2-season experiment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a worthwhile gamble for Mike Mayock and Jon Gruden, because you saw when he was on the field what type of player he could be, right? I mean, he's a dominant right tackle. But these concerns were out there when they signed him. This is somebody who wasn't always the most motivated player. He had one breakout season with Bill Belichick in 2018. So giving somebody that much money and asking him to change over from left tackle to right tackle presented problems in itself. I don't think it didn't work out. I just don't think it worked out as well as Mayock and Gruden were hoping for.
So he's just one of several free agents from that 2019 class that not panning out is an understatement. Vontaze Burfict, Terrell Williams, Marcus Joyner, all fell apart in one way or another. Props to the Raiders for cutting their losses eventually and getting out of there. But we talk about that on the show all the time. Like, we haven't drafted well recently. Free agent signings haven't panned out well. It's like, pick your poison. You got to improve somehow. What do you think the issue is? Is it terrible scouting? Is it just a poisonous environment in Las Vegas? Like, why do you think all these players just really aren't panning out in the short term?
Yeah, I really don't think it's the environment, because I think people want to come to Las Vegas. We've heard multiple all-pro players like Richard Sherman and Jalen Ramsey and now Russell Wilson say, they want to come play in Las Vegas. I still think Jon Gruden is a heck of a coach. I think it's the player evaluation, right? They're spending big money on guys that are maybe in roles that they shouldn't be in, right? Like let's take Tyrell Williams, for example. And this one's not necessarily Jon Gruden and Mike Mayock's fault too much, but they gave a lot of money to Tyrell Williams, who has always been really a number 3 receiver. Mm-hmm. And the goal was for him to be a number 2 receiver paired with Antonio Brown. Well, when Antonio Brown had the falling out with the Raiders, he was all of a sudden put into this number 1 receiver role. And that just was never going to work out, right? Even if he would have stayed healthy. So I think they're overpaying for these guys that are just good role players. We even saw it last year, right? When they paid Carl Nassib, who's really maybe a 3rd or 4th defensive end at best on a team. And they paid him big time money. I think that's where they're getting into the biggest problem.
He was a healthy scratch twice this year. It's just like you can't give. It's inexcusable for. And I was talking to RJ about this earlier. We got to stop trying to have that mindset of let's spread the money around and let's get 3 or 4 of these 5s and 6s. No, let's get 1 or 2 of these 8 and 9s, and then the other guys around them just do your job. We get the superstar players, the players that you should give the money to, and it's still starting to spread around for a bunch of okay guys.
Yeah, and look at the Raiders' best signing they have had over the last 2 years. It was a Nelson Aguilar on a minimum contract, right? Mm-hmm. You're way better off doing that, right? A studs and duds approach in free agency rather than just trying to get 4 or 5 guys to fill holes, because most of the time those guys don't end up filling the holes, and you've got to cut these players down the road anyway. So I completely agree. I would love to see the Raiders this offseason just target 2 or 3 guys, right? Just 2 or 3 guys at the top of their position in free agency rather than trying to fill every single hole before the draft.
Marcus, that's why you and I are best friends, because that's exactly what I've
Whether you like it or not, Marcus.
Whether you like it or not. We're getting the tattoos tomorrow. That's what I've been screaming for. Get the top 1 or 2 guys. Get that safety. Get that top safety. Get a disruptive D-tackle. Everything else will fall into place because you don't have a bunch of dogs out there. Bradley's already going to make the defense better. Right. Just get those players. And that's what I always say. We don't need players. We need players. We need player. I need a player in the secondary, and I need a player on that line.
If you're going to go spend in free agency on a pass rusher, don't mess around with these guys that are going to get 1 year, $6 million or something like that. Go after a guy that's a stud. Go get Shaq Barrett. Go get Carl Lawson. Go get, Melvin Ingram if you want to do that. I'm tired of them trying to patch things together and hoping it's going to be all right. Go get some studs.
Well, I think what's happening is they're trying to even out the money on both sides of the ball. So they had to kind of let me spread this guy out a couple of years and I have to pay that big money. It doesn't work. No. It doesn't work. And he found out when you spend a bulk amount of your money on a part of your team that doesn't normally have that much of you're paying all that for the offensive line. And it creates holes elsewhere. And like you said, the domino effect of just having to spread this money around. What are your asks right now? Like if you had to ask for 2 big signings on defense, what do you think? What are you going for?
It's tricky because I would have said safety a couple days ago, but they really need a free safety that can play the deep center of the field because they're going to be playing a lot of cover 3. They need somebody that can really cover up for Jonathan Abrams' weaknesses. And unfortunately, that market has dried up pretty quickly before free agency has even started, right? Marcus May was franchise tagged. Marcus Williams was franchise tag. There are Justin Simmons also Simmons got the franchise tag as well. There are a couple other guys out there that I think could potentially fill that role, but I don't see a top stud in free agency. So I'm looking at defensive end. Go get me a guy that can get double-digit sacks, and then it's going to have to be right tackle, right? You're going to have to find somebody now that can come in and replace Trent Brown. I don't know if Trent Williams is realistic because it sounds like he's going to get a lot of money from the 49ers. Taylor Moton was tagged by the Panthers. Maybe a Russell Okung, maybe an Alejandro Villanueva from Pittsburgh. Those would be the 2 guys that I would be interested in.
All right.
How worried are you for our offensive line next season, considering how much moving and shaking has happened in the last week and a half?
It's a really good question because I think it depends on Richie Incognito, right? Because the
Sure.
reports are right now that the team is interested in bringing him back. And if that's the case, I feel pretty good about that left side with Colton Miller, Incognito, and Rodney Hudson. They're likely to bring back Denzel Good to play either right guard or left guard, probably right guard. So you have to fill one spot in the draft or in free agency. I think they can do that. I do have confidence that Jon Gruden's going to figure that one out. I'm not overly concerned, but I don't think this offensive line is going to be maybe better than what we saw last year. I think getting it back to the same level we saw in 2020 is probably the hope.
Yeah, for probably like $10 to $15 million less, which is kind of the goal. So, and that was the issue, last season is the most expensive offensive line in football, and it played pretty good. Mm-hmm. But for that kind of money, you should be a top 5 line.
Yeah, they weren't the Titans.
And
they were the Titans.
And the running game regressed last season. The pass blocking was really good. Hat tip to the pass blocking. It was pretty good, but the run game regressed a little bit too. And so that goes into the next question is Derrick Carr, because, a guy that's not that mobile and a guy with fumbling problems, there's no, you understood why Jon Gruden and company dumped, bags of golden bullion onto their offensive linemen to protect this guy. So with Derrick Carr now, I think, he's so polarizing for God knows what reason. Like people love him and hate him. There's no just middle ground with him. Your expectations for Derrick Carr next season, because he's coming off of one of his best seasons ever, kind of, hopefully shutting up a lot of naysayers. And of course, there's always these rumors we're going to trade for Deshaun Watson or whoever. And, none of that's going to happen. There's zero chance any of that happens. But what do you see out of Derrick Carr next season in relation to what you saw this season?
Yeah, so RJ, I took over the managing editor role for the Raiders Wire in 2018, right before that season started. So that's the first year I was fully invested into the Raiders. And I think I was just kind of lukewarm with Derrick Carr, and he didn't play all that well in the 2018 season, had just 19 touchdowns. And I was one of these people that was, wanting them to go make a move for Kyler Murray in the 2019 draft. Looking back, that's foolish. I think Derrick Carr is a top 12 quarterback at worst in the NFL. I thought he was phenomenal last year. I really do. With the offensive line having so many injuries, with the injuries at wide receiver, turning Nelson Aguilar's career around, I just thought he was amazing. In that third year in that Jon Gruden offense, I expect him to get even better. We saw career high last year in passing yards, yards per attempt, adjusted yards per attempt, passer rating, QBR. I expect him to continue to improve and be one of the top 7-8 quarterbacks in the league this year.
I find that there's a correlation to the less he wears that eyeliner, the better he plays. Maybe it's his vision, maybe it's his
gotta go.
Maybe he can see better.
Don't blame the guy for having great eyelashes. It's just what it is.
dreamy eyelashes. Get it right.
The guy's got 4 kids. Clearly, whatever he's doing, it's working, right? Like the guy's not having trouble with his lady. So the defense next season. I've been of the opinion, and it's more like a blind faith, that Paul Guenther was the poison that ruined our defense the last few seasons. Because you kind of have to hope so. Because the roster isn't going to drastically change. We're not going to give up on all these first-round draft picks and these high-priced free agents that we paid for that really haven't panned out. Those guys aren't going anywhere anytime soon. So you have to hope that the guy that got fired, Paul Guenther, was the issue. What do you have for, what are your predictions for Gus Bradley and the Raiders in 2021, 2022?
All right. So here's the good thing with Gus Bradley and this Raiders defense. It's not like they need to be a top 10 defense for this team to be successful, right? If this Raiders defense can be average, they're going to be in the playoffs. There's no doubt in my mind they're going to be in the playoffs. And in fact, I think if they're in the top 20 in defense, they're probably in the playoffs this year because the offense has been that good under Jon Gruden. Mm-hmm. There are some pieces that you like, and you're hoping, last year with the COVID season, it just threw everything off, but you're hoping guys like Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby, Trayvon Mullen, Damon Arnett, all these young players can continue to step up. And then more importantly, the linebackers, right? Corey Littleton was atrocious in the first 10 games of the season. Once they fired Paul Gunther, he wasn't great, but he was certainly better, right? And I think this new scheme with Gus Bradley will simplify things for him. I think Nick Kwiatkowski is a really good middle linebacker. If they can find a veteran corner in free agency and then maybe another defensive tackle in the free agency or draft, I think there's a chance this defense can get to that, 18 range in points per game, and that should be good enough to get them back into the playoffs.
Jon Gruden, 3 seasons now in the second stint, 4-12, then 7-9, then 8-8. You can always point to, hey, they're improving every season, right? Like but Del Rio did better in his first 3 seasons than Jon Gruden did. Just kind of your evaluation in the first, I guess, 30% of his 10-year, $100 million deal.
I still think Jon Gruden is a fantastic coach, and you see it on game day. You see the way he scripts plays. He's gotten Derrick Carr to play better every single year. The offensive line has improved. The biggest flaw that Jon Gruden has is he can't evaluate talent at all. He needs to get out of the front office because he's terrible with free agents. He's terrible with the draft. I think if he just puts his pride and his ego aside and lets Mike Mayock and the scouts do their work, I think it's going to be much better for everybody. So until he does that, I'm going to be a little skeptical about the ceiling of this team. But as a pure coach, Jon Gruden is still really, really good.
That's why I was so adamant, and I fought with Soto and I fought with our other co-host on this all the time because they're like, hey, if Deshaun Watson's available, make your move, blah, blah, blah. We can make our move. It's like, look, Jon Gruden for being the quarterback whisperer in his quarterback room, he's fucking atrocious at finding quarterbacks. Who has he brought in? Nathan Peterman. He traded for AJ McCarron. He gave Marcus Mariota the biggest backup quarterback deal ever. He hasn't picked up a good quarterback since Rich Gannon in '99. That's the last time he's picked up a quarterback in free agency or drafted one that's panned out at all. He is. You say he's bad evaluator. He is beyond atrocious.
He's really bad. Yeah,
that's why I was so happy that Mayock was his GM because he likes Mayock, he trusts Mayock, they're friends. So as much as Jon Gruden, there's some ego there, and he's like, hey, I'm a $100 million coach. Of course, what I say is right. But at least somebody he respects is in that building like Mayock that can kind of push him in the right direction.
It's why it's kind of unbelievable that they went 8-8 last year, right? I mean, they were 6-3 at one point in the season, despite Jon Gruden's roster building skills of trading away Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack. So it is kind of a miracle. And I'm really hoping this offseason Jon Gruden takes a step back and lets Mayock do his job.
What do you think Mayock has to do for that to happen? Because we've been talking about that. And we talked about it a little earlier today about how I've never been shy about telling my boss how I feel. And that's
why he gets fired all the time.
Well, I mean, that's neither here nor there. What do you think Mayock and Bradley, because Bradley was an intricate part of building that defense with Seattle, what do you think they have to do to really kind of knock down Gruden and his opinion sometimes?
Yeah, I think Mayock has to go to Gruden and say, hey, listen, you brought me in here to be the general manager. You got to let me shop for the groceries, right? Because his reputation's on the line, right? If this thing goes poorly for Mike Mayock, he's probably never getting another general manager job again, right? He's probably having to go back to TV and his reputation would be hurt there. If he goes on TV and says, hey, these prospects are good, but he didn't prove that he could do it in the NFL. So he needs to have things work out. I do expect that we're going to see Mayock have a little bit more control. Just how much, I think that's a question.
Yeah, we've seen some of these, some of these first round picks are, and it's what we've been talking about. I was talking to when we were talking about the Russell Wilson giving up 4 first-round picks. I said our last 4. You wouldn't give up our last 4 first-round picks for Russell Wilson. I would, because we're picking the wrong guys, right? I'm gonna pose a question to you that I posed to RJ last week. Let's see if you can get it. Who was the last Raiders first-round pick that re-signed with the Raiders?
See, this is a really good question because I actually posted this on Twitter a couple of days ago. It's Darren McFadden.
Oh, so you plagiarized it from Marcus. Oh, so
it was
trying
Darren
to act
McFadden. Darren McFadden from the 2008 class was the last one, and he got a relatively short deal. He was out by the end of the 2014 season, went to Dallas and had some success there. So, yeah, Derrick McFadden.
Bam.
So you copied off the teacher, and you're trying to like be smart to me, Soto.
That's a good question, though.
I tried to lob it to him. I told you he wrote it. I tweeted it when I asked you the first time.
So who's the next one to get it? It's probably Colton Miller, right?
Oh yeah, you got to.
Gotta be.
Yeah,
gotta be. I mean, it just I feel it speaks to how good Miller and Hudson are. They can anchor that line and just put complementary pieces around them, and they're still going to play well.
Yes, I would agree. And I'm interested to see how John Simpson plays, a fourth-round guard last year from Clemson. Up and down as a rookie, I think is being kind, but I know Mayock is a big fan. Maybe they'll give him a chance to win that backup job, behind Incognito again if he's brought back, and assuming Denzel Good is back. But somebody to keep an eye on over the offseason.
Nice.
You also work a lot with the Cowboys as well, and they've certainly been in the news this week.
The NFC Raiders. That's basically the way I phrase it.
Everyone loves them, but they just can't get a W. They just can't get to the playoffs or do anything. Are you stoked that Dak's going to be around at that price point? Or are you like, Jerry, where are you finding this money? Like, there's a salary cap, right?
Yeah, I'm excited because I think by the time we play week 1, he won't even be the second highest paid quarterback in the league with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen both up for contracts. We know the TV deals are going to hit. Sounds like in the next couple of weeks. And do you know who is negotiating those new TV contracts?
Does he have a Southern accent?
Yes, it is. The one and only Jerry Jones. So I think he's got a pretty good idea of what the cap might be here in the next couple of years. I don't think they're worried about it at all. So I am very excited. It's always nice to have your quarterback in place. It makes roster building so much easier. And the Cowboys have a lot of the same things going on as the Raiders, right? A really talented offense, a new defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn from that Seahawks, scheme in 2012, both bald guys with goatees.
Love it.
I expect it to be very similar this year.
Well, you've also got our wide receiver as well with Amari Cooper, and it's like he was like Mr. Drops a lot. Like he was a good locker room guy, like ran good routes, like obviously a physical specimen. Like he wasn't terrible, but he just it's very hard to escape your draft pick, right? Second overall, and yet he's flourishing in Dallas, making $20 million a year. Like what? That's why, Marcus. I always think to myself, like, is it poisonous in that Raiders facility because players were great somewhere else, they suck here, they're okay here, they go somewhere else and they're great?
No, I just think Cooper needed to change the scenery, right? And I think Dallas is the right spot for him, and they paired him with the right type of quarterback, right? Somebody who is willing to feed him a bunch of targets in a game in Dak Prescott. He's been, really good at, making plays down the field. I think in this Kellen Moore offense, which is, lines him up in the slot, lines him up as the X receiver, will move him around. I just think it's a better football fit for Amari Cooper. But let's not act like he wasn't ridiculously good for the Raiders those first 2 years, right? I mean, he was a stud, battled some injuries. I will never, ever say a bad word about Amari Cooper. I just think he's phenomenal.
Yeah, we actually had Carl Cochran on from NFL, from Raider Films on YouTube, and he said the same thing. His body language just didn't look like he wanted to be with the Raiders. And it was maybe a cultural clash down over in Oakland at the time. And he was a lot more comfortable. He's a Southern guy, a lot more comfortable in Texas.
Yeah, and the Cowboys actually, before they made the trade for Amari Cooper, they went to Tuscaloosa and they talked to Nick Saban about Amari Cooper's personality and what he likes to do off the field and what kind of coaching he responds to. So they talked to the Saban to get all that intel. And then when they brought him in, they've basically designed a scheme and a culture around him to make him feel more comfortable. And obviously it's been very successful for them over the last 3 years.
Yeah. Just imagine Jon Gruden doing that.
Yeah.
Never happened. He's like, all right, let me coddle you a little bit. You know what I mean? Let me give you some emotional support. It's like, no, I want grinders. Gruden.
Yeah,
grinders.
I mean, listen, like this is a really trivial thing, but like when they brought Amari Cooper in, they introduced into the players on the team that were like big readers, and they have like a book club, and that's like something that Amari Cooper loves. And they have a chess team on the Dallas Cowboys, and that's something that Cooper's really passionate about. So even little things like that to make him feel more comfortable in the locker room is, I think, why he's maybe a little bit more successful in Dallas than he was with the Raiders.
How tired are you to hear Gruden say he's a grinder?
Yeah, I mean, it gets a little old after a couple of years. We're on year 4 of it now. It's I guess it is what it is. We only have 6 more years left.
I guess. I mean, I was saying it last week. Like that's a shtick for football, for TV. That's not a way you build a roster.
Well, even the jokiness and like the not panning out part aside, like I'm kind of down to have a roster of like no nonsense team oriented guys, right? Like that sounds great for me. Like, okay, yeah, let's get high character guys that
I want
show up early. But he's not getting even those guys. Like he's getting like Trent Browns who don't want to be there, and like Richie Incognito.
Perfect.
Vontez perfect. Like Richie Incognito turned out to be great, but he had like a reputation coming in.
Whoa. I said last week. One guy didn't like him. Everyone else loved him as a team.
But nobody else liked him because of what he did to the one guy. So let's not underscore that moment.
There's some also other stuff going on with Richie Incognito. I know it's fascinating the types of players that Jon Gruden is attracted to, right? Mm-hmm. Antonio Brown's another one, right?
Yeah.
They thought their culture could fix Antonio Brown, right? Going from Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh to the Raiders, where they were on Hard Knocks and it's a new coach, and I have no idea. I have no idea why Gruden is attracted to these players, why he thinks he can coach them up and get them to walk the straight and narrow. But it is fascinating.
Nothing like the Las Vegas Strip to bring out the best in 23-year-old athletes, millionaire athletes. You know what I mean? What a great environment to foster good grinding mentalities. His name's Marcus Mosher. He's the managing editor of the Raiders Wire. Give him a follow on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher, Mosher. Marcus, this was great. Come back again, please.
Thanks, man. Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on, fellas.
All right. Thank you, Marcus. We appreciate it. So new segment here on the Autumn Windbags. I'm sick of talking to you. I'm sure you're sick of talking to me. Like if I have to hear just your voice and just your questions and just your comments one more time, I'm going to take this beer and rip it in half and slit my wrists. So luckily we don't have to do that anymore because we got a new segment called What Up Windbags. And so people can either hit us up on social media at the Windbags on Twitter, at the Autumn Windbags on Instagram, and also YouTube comments as well. So make sure you go to our YouTube page, watch your videos and comment on them. And maybe your comments will appear on this very show. So the first one comes from, what is this? Lake Avery Wood. Why don't the Raiders throw deep like they used to? And I guess, is it used to like 2016 or used to like 1981?
I'm thinking like old school Raiders.
Like old school Raiders.
Like 7-step drop.
Vertical.
Raiders, yeah. Let's go vertical. Like the Jeff George Raiders. Like him and Al Davis wearing those white jumpsuits.
Just so they can look faster.
Going vertical. Yeah. I mean, they just they haven't had the receivers. I don't think they've had the receivers to do it. Back in the day.
Well, the irony is they threw deeper this season than they had pretty much
in years. Yeah. But you know what?
Decade.
You have that speedster on one side, and you have a guy that can. They've had the combination of pieces that they haven't had before. Have they had speedsters before? Yes. Have they had guys with that were clutch and who can make that grab and run good routes? Yes. Have they had tight ends that can run routes and get open? Yes. Have they had it all at the same time? No. Well, now they do. Mm-hmm. And now that they do have it, they're able to throw deeper a little bit better because you have, you pick your poison. You want to let Ruggs go deep? Ask the Jets how that worked out. Yeah. You want to leave Waller to let him do his thing over the middle? Ask the Chargers how that worked out. You want to just focus on those two and let Aguilar do his thing? Ask the league how that worked out this year. Yeah. So that's one of the big things is we just haven't had the tools and the combination that we need to be able to do that.
We have exactly that now. Like you said, I mean, Waller's uncoverable. Henry Ruggs will be the fastest guy on the field every time he's out there. Nelly never dropped, turned into a deep threat. And then we had a great offensive line for pass blocking. Like I said, the run game, receded a little bit, but the passing
Pass blocking was great, man.
Pass blocking was really, really good. So all the pieces are there. It's just like that's not how the offense was built under Jon Gruden. And I guess I understand why. Like Gruden's like, all right, our defense is terrible, so let's play keep away. Run the ball, short outs, get it to Waller, get it to Renfro, let's just move the ball, eat clock, eat time, wear them down because our defense blows. I think they should go the other way with it. Like the offense is going to score on us. Like we're going to get scored on.
And that's what I've been saying.
Big numbers up.
Push the ball down the field. And as far as Renfro or Hummer Renfro goes, he is the next in line of bald receivers in the NFL because have you seen that? He's getting there. So God bless him. Get that cul-de-sac.
Yeah, he's the oldest looking 23-year-old I've ever seen in my life. Is he 23?
He's 24 now,
24 now?
Because he was a senior when he got drafted.
He ages like dogs, like dog years.
Oh, don't do that to the man.
No, he plays great. This is wonderful. That's part of what makes him like the wife always just calls him adorable every time. It's like, he's like one of the best slot receivers on the team, right? Like but he's adorable. Like that's the word I want to use. Okay. Adorable it is.
Sounds good.
Craft Beer John said, we have a good young running back in Josh Jacobs, which got me thinking, is Bo Jackson the best running back the Raiders ever had? It's hard to say above Marcus Allen. Anybody's better than Marcus Allen. I will say this, though. Bo Jackson is the best athlete to ever put shoulder pads on in the history of shoulder pads.
I agree 100%. And the reason why I can't put Bo over Marcus Allen is because Bo never played a full season in the NFL. He played such a short career. And if he would have played, full seasons, he would have racked up some insane numbers. That's a 2,000-yard rusher almost every single year. And he was very durable until he got hurt. But I mean, who do you know? Because he's only playing maybe a little less than half a season most years. So I don't know. I would say Marcus Allen is the number one.
Although Bo Jackson does have Marcus on the most baseball bats broken over his knee department. I mean, he does have that. It's hard to compete.
He's the most untackleable player in Tecmo Bowl.
It's true.
You could have won straight at people with Bo Jackson. You're just going to bounce off of his ass.
Yeah. Whenever you played, whenever your buddy was playing the Raiders, that like, all right, they're running the game. They're running those two running plays over and over again. They're the only team with a two back, right? In Tecmo Bowl?
Because he only had one running play because he only had two running plays. So one was to Bo Jackson, one was to Marcus Allen. The only player that could tackle him consistently without getting bounced was Lawrence Taylor in the game. And everyone else got bounced most of the time.
Last one from Twitter. This one's from Lencho. And this is about this is on the video about is Derrick, Derrick Carr is a great leader, but he needs help. The comment is, I think half the nation has Carr fatigue. Just too many losing seasons with him, regardless of the reason. Fans like what Mariota did with his legs. Carr simply can't extend those plays on some of these other quarterback level. Tom Brady can't do it either, but he wins. Winning solves all the problems and doubts. I think this all goes away if we make the playoffs and win in the playoffs. If Carr goes 1-out in the playoffs, we will still hear this Carr stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, the Carr stuff's never going to go away with people until like a Super Bowl or something like that.
I'm talking about, I think it'll go away if you string together 2 or 3 years where you at least get one win in the playoffs, where you're getting into the thick of things in the playoffs. All right, well, they're in it now. I think that'll calm a lot of this talk down.
This is what's going to happen. This is my prediction. As the defense improves, Raider fans will start saying Derek Carr is better. That's what's going to happen. As the defense gets better and we start winning, and there's going to be like, oh, let's see, Derek Carr's great. Derek Carr's awesome. It's like, oh, let's see. Let's see if it's him playing better or if the defense is just playing better. So we're getting into the playoffs. Watch. That's what's going to happen.
Okay.
Mark my damn words.
We'll see when it's on his shoulders and he has to do something, if he actually gets it done or if he throws the ball
he has
away
over and over again, but then the defense gives up a long touchdown in Miami, and then the game's over. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's what you want to focus on,
telling you. All right, that's it for the very first What Up Windbags. That was kind of fun. We'll keep doing that more often. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, comment on all of our platforms that you listen to for this podcast and on YouTube as well. And until next week, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, Windbags, if you want Darren Waller to catch 20 touchdown passes this season, don't be afraid to click those subscribe, like, share, and comment buttons. Plus, your comment could be featured in the next What Up, Windbags?